Thank you very much. I'm especially honored to be here today because I'm pleased to be on the same program with Judith Schwartz, whose wonderful book, Cows Save the Planet, is required reading in a number of my own courses at the University of New Hampshire. I finished putting together my remarks on the train this morning, coming down from New Hampshire early this morning. On board the Amtrak trains is where I do some of my best work, and it's a great place to think and write. A little plug for Amtrak and the trains, because that is the ecological way of traveling. I know there are people in this audience who are quite unfamiliar with pastures, with pasture grasses, with managing livestock in paddocks, etc. If you're a New Englander, we've been separated from grazing and pastures for over half a century. So even many of our current New England farmers are unfamiliar. Even many dairy farmers are today unfamiliar with, even a bit uncomfortable with, grazing, pastures, and animal herding. And yet pasture grazing, for the whole range of dairy and meat product that it produces, is the very centerpiece of New England food production in the past and in the future. The centerpiece of what we can produce for food here is not greens, it's not veggies, it's not grain, it's grass for meat and dairy. That is our New England reality. It has been in the past, and it certainly will be again in the future. We know that what we are witnessing here in New England and the Northeast is a revolution at the grassroots, not simply a renaissance or return of agriculture to our lives and our communities, but a true agrarian revolution. Our society increasingly wants fresh and high nutrition, locally produced food. We know that our young people are becoming more and more agrarian. Some of them want to farm full or part-time. Many of them want to mingle with the farmers who produce their food, to know where that farm is, to know how that food is grown and processed. I have a unique experience in the sense that I normally, in the fall semester in particular, teach 30-year-old graduate students in the morning on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and on the same day, I have the youngest students in the university in the afternoon, 17 and 18-year-old first-year students. And I can tell you that the 17 and 18-year-old freshmen are ahead of the graduate students, and they are ahead of the seniors as well, simply because they're younger. They were born a little bit later. They were born more deeply into an agrarian environment, if you will, more so than the others. But I tell those young freshman undergraduate students that they shouldn't get too big ahead about being ahead of the seniors, because I could assure them that their own siblings who are still in high school or middle school are probably ahead of them in the degree of agrarianism. We know that in New England in particular, we're particularly food insecure. We're at the very end of the supply chain for 90% of what we eat. If there are any food shortages resulting from drought or oil insecurity or for any other reason, we are the last to be fed, if we are fed. And by the way, with severe problems in the American Southwest and perhaps in other parts of the United States, those people will be leaving those regions, and they'll be seeking out the three areas of the United States that have lots and lots of water: the Pacific Northwest, the Great Lakes region, and our own region of New England. So we may anticipate a larger migrant population of fellow Americans from those states as their opportunities in the very dry regions essentially dry up. Everyone at this great Biodiversity for a Livable Climate conference knows that a real solution to the challenge of climate change which is confronting us is small-scale, grass-based, sometimes organic, and always biodiverse, or to put it another way, polycultural agriculture based on ecological principles. It is never industrial agriculture or factory farming or monoculture in any form, and we know that nature abhors a monoculture. From that agricultural practice, we get both great, good, healthy food and at the same time resolution of the climate challenge. So clearly, it's a win-win situation with many other wins, many other benefits in the offing. We already know these things. So what can I offer you? If you were to read either of the two recent books that I did for the University of New Hampshire, Pastures of Plenty, The Future of Food, Agriculture, and Environmental Conservation in New England, or the more recent one, The Real Dirt, Toward Food Sufficiency and Farm Sustainability in New England, you would learn of the incredible resources we have at our disposal to feed ourselves from some of the best pastures and cool season pasture grasses in the United States, not to mention great grazing soils and plenty of water. And incidentally, if you could know your great-grandparents, certainly if you know or knew or recall your grandparents, you would know that you were in touch with a people who had much more familiarity with New England pastures than any of us have, even if they had no connection to the farm, even if they were not farmers. Pastures in the 1930s, 1940s were very much a way of life in New England, and all that you have to do is study the newspapers of that era to understand that. There were many, many festivals and other kinds of activities surrounding pastures and those wonderful cool season grasses that our region is so adept at producing. So we have tremendous potential for that. Another point I would make in that line is that sometimes my students would look at me and say, I don't see that many pastures around here. And I'll say, have you noticed the woodlands? Almost all of those woodlands that you see so commonly in our region of southern New Hampshire or virtually anywhere else in New England were pastures not too many years ago. So when we look at the woods in most areas other than in the high mountains, we're looking at former pastures and pastures of not so long ago. We are indeed an area of pastures of plenty, and that's why I chose that particular title. Best grazing soils, lots of water, we have everything it takes. Great for dairy, great for meat of all kinds, great for fruit. Of course, it's been said that New England soil wants to be apples. Vermonters have said that. With opportunity, certainly for vegetables, although we have limits on our tillable acreage, opportunity for some grain, but clearly limits there as well. And fruit, of course, the apples, the berries, and so on. You would learn also about New England's expertise in direct marketing. We are really the experts in Vermont, in New Hampshire, in Massachusetts, and in Maine, most particularly in those 4 states. We are experts at direct marketing, so very necessary to ensure an adequate revenue stream to keep our farmers on the land and to attract new farmers to go on the land. You would also learn of our very underutilized land-grant university colleges of agriculture and what they could be doing for us. They don't necessarily like to hear me saying that because they're not necessarily looking for a lot more business in some ways, but they do need to be serving the average resident of our states. That's what they were built for. That's what they're there for. All of our public owns the land-grant universities, including my own, the University of New Hampshire, and we should be demanding of them a good deal of assistance and help in this area of both climate change questions and the production of local food. But I particularly want to call to your attention something that my state, New Hampshire, which is known as the live free or die state, has to offer the region. We know of the great progressiveness of Vermont in local food and farming and the leadership that Vermonters are providing, and we thank them for it. We know of the great ability and ambitions of the state of Maine, that very large state to the north of us, to both feed itself and to feed the rest of us in New England. And we thank them for it, and it surely can feed the rest of us if it set its mind to do so. We know of the leadership of the Bay State, this state, in showing us the way to organic agriculture, in introducing us to the idea of the Town Agricultural Commission, which is a Massachusetts invention, and, thanks to the vision of the late Mayor Menino, what a city like Boston can do with its zoning code the new Article 89, which is nationally famous right now as a zoning code in Boston, to spur food production within the city, both on the ground and on the rooftops and on the walls as well. And we thank the Bay State, the Commonwealth, for these contributions. What we in the Granite State have to contribute is a much vaunted libertarian spirit, which has good aspects and not so good aspects both, but it's a clear libertarian spirit in New Hampshire. So first let me say thank you to Vermont for giving us what we call in New Hampshire Granite State Farm to Plate. The idea came from Vermont Farm to Plate. That is our new state law, which makes it official state policy to both encourage and support local food and farming and the processing, in other words, the value added, of our farm and garden product wherever it occurs in the state and in whatever form. And let me say thank you to Massachusetts for giving us in New Hampshire the idea of the Town Agricultural Commission. We're the only other state in the nation to pick up on that wise Massachusetts idea, and it is serving us well. In New Hampshire, we take our state motto, live free or die, seriously, and we know that the path to that freedom is to grow our own food. With the help of my own state senator, Democrat Martha Fuller Clark of Portsmouth, we moved Senate Bill 141, called Granite State Farm to Plate, into law, and Governor Hassan signed it in August, a Democratic initiative that attracted strong bipartisan Republican support. Now I'm working with the new Republican leadership in the New Hampshire House of Representatives to go a step further by introducing into the new legislature this January the New Hampshire Small Farm Protection Act of 2015, which will exempt our smaller farmers from the burden of numerous regulations as long as they are small scale. And on the local level, in our towns, we're using the town agricultural commissions to function likewise at the town and the city level. I serve as a regular member, a voting member of the Durham Agricultural Commission in my town. So you see that the New Hampshire way is to free the energy, the spirit, the passion of our people by removing obstacles from their path and thereby encouraging them to do what so many of them love: market gardening and backyard farming, both plant and animal, vastly increasing the local food supply in our state. It's a question, therefore, of eliminating obstacles and releasing the spirit, the energy, the feelings of people to move strongly in this direction, thus guaranteeing us a more secure food supply. I have brought along with me a gift for each of you, and that is a copy of my new book, Live Free and Farm, Food and Independence in the Granite State. If you'll give either myself or the conference organizers your email address, I will send the book to you as an e-book. So it comes through as an e-book in beautiful color and watercolor paintings and all the rest. It's beautifully illustrated with the watercolor paintings throughout, and it tells the story of what is going on in New Hampshire in our agrarian revolution. We had some money left over in a grant, and I decided to put that together and get it out for free distribution. The main target being 1.3 million people who live in the state of New Hampshire, but certainly anyone who lives in the bordering states or perhaps beyond in the northeastern United States. It's not a bad, it's also equally in many ways appropriate. And when I say farmer, please know that you are farming if you're buying your food directly from a local farmer, enabling that farmer to stay on the land and continuing what that farmer loves to do: produce healthy food for a grateful and satisfied public. And remember also, every molecule of food that you consume from a local source, from a local farm, displaces an equal molecule of food from away. That is very powerful economics, very powerful economic development. So my closing words to you from the Granite State are live free and farm, and thereby secure both your food and your independence. Thank you.